In the frozen winter of 1942, the Battle of Stalingrad was reaching its climax. The German Sixth Army, led by General Friedrich Paulus, had been attempting to capture the city for months, but the Soviet defenders, despite being vastly outnumbered, refused to yield. Amidst the chaos and destruction, a small group of Soviet sappers, led by a young lieutenant named Nikolai, were tasked with a crucial mission to destroy the last remaining bridge over the Volga River, denying the Germans a vital supply route. The sappers had been ordered to blow the bridge at dawn on February 2nd, but as the night wore before the fateful day, Nikolai began to feel a sense of unease. He had been studying the German troop movements, and he suspected that the enemy was planning a massive counterattack, aimed directly at the bridge. If the Germans were to capture the bridge intact, it would give them a decisive advantage, allowing them to pour in reinforcements and supplies, potentially turning the tide of the battle. Nikolai knew that his decision would have far-reaching consequences, not just for the battle, but for the entire war. He decided to delay the detonation, hoping to wait for the German counterattack to begin, and then blow the bridge, trapping the enemy troops on the wrong side of the river. The hours ticked by, and the tension mounted, as Nikolai and his team waited anxiously for the dawn. The German counterattack began, with waves of infantry and armor pouring towards the bridge. Nikolai gave the order, and the sappers lit the fuse. The bridge erupted in a massive explosion, sending debris flying in all directions, and cutting off the German advance. The delay had given the Soviet defenders a narrow window of opportunity, allowing them to regroup and launch a fierce counterattack of their own. The Germans, now trapped and disorganized, were quickly overwhelmed, and their counterattack was repelled. The Battle of Stalingrad was all but over, and the Soviet Union had won a crushing victory. Nikolai's decision to delay the detonation had changed the course of the battle, and potentially the war. His bravery and quick thinking had saved thousands of lives, and had dealt a devastating blow to the German war machine. The forgotten fuse, lit by a young and courageous sapper, had become a pivotal moment in the history of World War II. As the news of the victory spread, the Soviet people rejoiced, and the morale of the Red Army soared. The Battle of Stalingrad had been a turning point, marking a shift in the balance of power on the Eastern Front. The German army would never recover from the defeat, and the Soviet Union would go on to play a major role in the Allied victory. Nikolai's actions, though largely overlooked at the time, had been a key factor in the Soviet triumph. His story, like many others, was lost in the chaos of war, but its impact would be felt for generations to come. The delay of a few hours, the hesitation of a young officer, had altered the course of history in a way that would forever be remembered as a testament to the bravery and ingenuity of the Soviet people. As the war finally came to an end, and the world began to rebuild, the memory of Nikolai and his team would live on, a reminder of the power of courage and determination in the face of overwhelming adversity. The forgotten fuse, once a small, seemingly insignificant event, had become a symbol of the unyielding spirit of the Soviet people, and a testament to the enduring power of bravery and sacrifice. In the years that followed, the story of Nikolai and his team would be told and retold, a reminder to future generations of the importance of quick thinking and courage under fire. The legacy of the forgotten fuse would continue to inspire, a beacon of hope in the darkest of times, and a reminder that even in the most desperate of moments, there is always a way to make a difference. As the annals of history are filled with stories of heroism and sacrifice, the tale of the forgotten fuse will remain, a shining example of the human spirit at its finest, and a testament to the enduring power of bravery and determination. As the last remnants of the German army retreated from the ruins of Stalingrad, Nikolai and his team were tasked with conducting a thorough reconnaissance of the devastated city. The once thriving metropolis was now a mere shadow of its former self, with buildings reduced to rubble and streets littered with the bodies of the dead and dying. The air was thick with the stench of death and destruction, and the silence was oppressive, punctuated only by the occasional cry of a wounded soldier or the rumble of distant artillery. Nikolai's team moved cautiously, their eyes scanning the horizon for any sign of enemy activity as they navigated the treacherous landscape of rubble and debris. They encountered pockets of German soldiers, some of whom were still fighting, while others were too wounded or demoralized to resist. Nikolai's team took them prisoner, adding to the growing number of German POWs in Soviet custody. As they delved deeper into the city, they stumbled upon a hidden bunker, buried beneath the ruins of a destroyed building. The entrance was guarded by a small group of fanatical German soldiers who refused to surrender, even in the face of overwhelming odds. Nikolai knew that the bunker might contain valuable intelligence, and he decided to try and capture it intact. He ordered his team to lay down a withering field of fire, pinning down the German guards, while he and a small group of sappers made a daring dash for the entrance. They fought their way inside, taking out the German soldiers one by one, until they finally reached the heart of the bunker. There, they found a treasure trove of documents and maps, detailing the German army's plans and operations on the Eastern Front. The intelligence was priceless, and Nikolai knew that it could give the Soviet Union a significant advantage in the coming months. He ordered his team to gather up as much of the material as they could, and to prepare it for transport back to Soviet headquarters. As they worked, they heard the sound of approaching armored vehicles, and Nikolai's heart sank, thinking that a German counterattack was underway. But to his surprise, the vehicles turned out to be a group of Soviet tanks, sent to reinforce the city's defenses and to help mop up the remaining German forces. The tanks were accompanied by a group of high-ranking Soviet officers, who had come to survey the damage and to plan the next phase of the Soviet counterattack. Nikolai was summoned to meet with the officers, and he was hailed as a hero for his bravery and quick thinking in delaying the detonation of the bridge. The officers praised him for his role in turning the tide of the battle, and they told him that his actions would be recognized and rewarded. Nikolai was modest and unassuming, but he couldn't help feeling a sense of pride and satisfaction, knowing that he had played a small part in the Soviet victory. As he stood amidst the ruins of Stalingrad, surrounded by the devastation and the carnage, he knew that the war was far from over, but he also knew that the Soviet Union had gained a crucial advantage, one that would ultimately lead to the defeat of the German army and the liberation of Europe from the Nazi tyranny. The forgotten fuse, once a small and insignificant event, had become a beacon of hope, illuminating the path to victory, and inspiring a generation of soldiers and civilians to resist and overcome, no matter the odds. And as Nikolai looked out upon the ravaged city, he knew that the memory of the forgotten fuse would live on, a testament to the power of courage and determination in the face of overwhelming adversity. As the Soviet officers began to discuss their next move, Nikolai couldn't shake off the feeling that there was still much work to be done. He knew that the German army was far from defeated, and that they would stop at nothing to regain the initiative. He excused himself from the meeting and made his way back to his team, who were still busy gathering up the intelligence from the bunker. As he approached, he noticed that one of his sappers, a young private named Sergei, was acting strangely. Sergei was pacing back and forth, his eyes darting nervously between the surrounding buildings. Nikolai approached him and asked what was wrong, but Sergei just shook his head and muttered something about feeling like they were being watched. Nikolai's instincts began to tingle, and he scanned the horizon, searching for any sign of enemy activity. That's when he saw it, a faint plume of smoke rising from a nearby building. It was a small, almost imperceptible signal, but Nikolai knew that it could be a warning sign. He quickly assembled his team and began to move cautiously towards the building, their guns at the ready. As they approached, the smoke grew thicker, and Nikolai could hear the sound of muffled voices coming from inside. He signaled to his team to fan out, covering the surrounding area, and then he crept forward, his heart pounding in his chest. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the doorway, a German soldier with a look of desperation in his eyes. Nikolai raised his gun, ready to fire, but the soldier just stood there, frozen in terror. And then, in a flash of insight, Nikolai realized that the soldier was not alone. There were others, hidden inside the building, waiting to strike. The soldier's eyes flicked towards the doorway, and Nikolai followed his gaze. That's when he saw it, a detonator, wired to a massive explosive charge, counting down the seconds until detonation. Nikolai's heart skipped a beat as he realized that they had stumbled into a trap, one that could destroy the entire city block and kill hundreds of Soviet soldiers. He knew that he had to act fast, to disable the bomb and save his comrades. But as he looked around, he realized that they were running out of time, and that the fate of the city hung in the balance.